Masachet Hullin Daf Memrina Amur Aleph. First line. Amar Ula Shimona B'nei Terefot Nimnu Moshe B'Sinai. Eight types of terefot were mentioned by Har Sinai to Moshe. Nikuva Usukana Tula V'Hasura Keru Adrusa Nefula Ushfura. Punctures, severed, something cut, removed, missing, torn, clawed, fallen, fractured. La Fuke, seemingly these eight, to exclude Lakute de Rachish Papa, to exclude what disease cases of the kidney. There are eight types of televot mentioned in just the punctured. Im Tamar Tashan, if you want to say there's nine, because I mentioned our Mishnah. The ninth one of the punctured gallbladder. One of the 10, but it says in the the stomachs and intestines are punctured. It's tarev, to the gallbladder. That's why he can't say he excludes that rabbi. הלכות חבר כזית מרה וכוכבן סימן. Amar Ishaq Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Hanan Chak Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Dah Chazakim that a punctured gallbladder is a trepa. Amar Ishaq Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Hanan Mai Ahadru the Havreda Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Dah. What did the Hachmim answer to prove to the rabbi that a punctured gallbladder is not a trepa? Because Yoav said, sorry, not Yoav. Yoav said, Yishpoch la'aretz mira tetzid v'adayin Yoav kayam. He said, my gallbladder is on the ground. I don't think to live. Must be they don't go, but it's not fatal. Madam is in Maskirin Masan. That was a miracle. You can't bring a proof. Because you don't want to say that. If Allah he also says my kidneys are split. He also couldn't have a Sashani, not be a miracle, and that's different. Titiv Achat Nafshi Shmori that Hashem got in my life. Hashem said to the Malach Mavet at the time, the whole story with the Yov, that he had to guard his life. That's why he lived, even though these crazy things happened. Okay. So this is over there is the miracle, so up here is the miracle. When we talk about it, the opinion is according to that the animal needs a kazayit of his liver in order to be considered not a terefa. Okay. We have Yochanan Achid the case. We know that Yochanan holds like the Stam Mishnah, and therefore Utanah Mishnah said Nitla Kar Nishtem Klum. If the liver is removed, nothing left. Ha, Nishtem should have to look at it. Sounds like even something remains, even if that kazayit is kasher. Stira, the Gemara says no. Amar Rabbi Yochanan Achloket Amoraim. Okay. Amar Rabbi Zacharias Rabbi Yochanan Mara Sheni Kibag Vechaved Sotam Tak Yeshirav. The gallbladder has a puncture, but the liver next to it covers that and lays flush against it to block that puncture. It is not a tirefa. Amar Rabbi Zacharias Rabbi Yochanan Nikav HaKukubam Vekis Shalok Hayam Kasher. If the outside part of the muscle tissue of a bird, the gizzard, was punctured, but the inner pouch covers it, yani the pouch that's inside has a cover on top, it's kasher, not a terefa. If I have a question, what's the inner pouch shows punctured, but the outer gizzard is intact? What vice versa? What's the halacha? The Moshe bring proof. The Mar Nachman, nikav zeh v'lo zeh kasher. If the one is punctured at the other, it's kasher. Not terefa, unless they're both punctured. Maraba, Shnei Arot Yesh Lo Levezed. The esophagus has two layers. Chitzon Adom Pni Levan. The outside layer is red and the inner is white. Nikav Zev Lo Zeh Kasher. If one punctured at the other, it's kasher. It's not considered terefa. That one, Chitzon Adom Pni Levan. What's the case? Why have to mention the out is red and the inner is white? Whereas you have to know that if those layers are inverted, they're backwards, reversed. If the out was white and the inner was red, then it's considered terefa. Back to the question. What both layers are punctured, but the hole don't line up. It's not like a hole straight through. One has a hole there, one has a hole underneath. What the halacha? Gemara says, Amar Musrab Meshvit Rabab. In the case of the esophagus, it's kasher, but in the case of the gizzard, it's taref, meaning if the gizzard has a hole on the outside, and then the second hole is in a different spot, and the inside, it's still taref, but not by the esophagus. The Gemara says, "Matita Rabashe, Adrab, it should be the opposite. Veshet dachla upayebe." The esophagus, the animal eats and talks with. Therefore, it's constantly expanding and stretching. One time they'll actually, because it's moving, you may actually align with the second hole. But the gizzard, which stays in the same place, will never line up. So the gizzard should be terefa, and the throat should be kasher. What the halacha? Gemara says, "Amar Musrab Meshvit Rabbanan." The Gemara says, "Matita Rabashe, Adrab, it should be the opposite. Veshet dachla upayebe." The esophagus, the animal eats and talks with. The gizzard, the esophagus, the animal eats and talks with. Opposite. Yeah, and the throat should be kasher. Sorry, no. The throat should be kasher. Throat should be terefa, and the gizzard should be plus terefa, not terefa. ما يروح على درس رجع خاميا نشد الشمس ما مش من ركبة كبده. It's true. There is a proof for Ravashi's opinion that the esophagus is teref and the gizzard is kasher. Amar Krum Shalom Mahmad Makab Beshet and Krum. If a scab covers the esophagus wound, it's not considered a good scab. Amar Ba Besh Emma Bidikal Hosel Bifnim. The esophagus is not subject to examination from the outside and from the inside. I'm not have to know what's the difference. Why do I have to say that? Because the safek tirusa by when you come on a case of Claude, you have to see where there's red spots. Therefore, to make sure you're checking from the inside and on the outside. هيسا هيدرس هذا أصلا كمان There's a certain cloud animal that came in front of Rabba. I cover particularly Rabba version to either Rabba was checking the outside. My bad I said more who Amar versus in the video come them back but you see to check the inside. After Rabba by the case, so therefore he turned inside to inspect it. باش تكون على three كورت دماغ he found two spots of red on it. مثل face as تعرف. Rabba نعمل الحوضية بالباية هذا يعني even though seemingly he forgot his own teaching, he wasn't doing that. He was just sharpening Abaye to make him catch his quote unquote mistake on purpose. معقولة يشرب له caused the visit. The thorn was found in the esophagus and Hoshin Shema Hivri. You're not worried maybe it was punctured by the thorn and then it healed. Rather, you have to assume that it was you don't have to assume that it was punctured, you could just assume that it was swallowed. راح تتخبط سكين في مازن. الأولى ما يشنا نستفيد رسالة. What's the difference between a clawed animal where we say you have to examine for clawing versus كسر الأولى إن حشينا نستفيد رسالة because he holds interesting that we're not worried that maybe it's not clawed. Meaning, if we think the animal was clawed, we don't require the animal be examined for clawing. He assumes kasher. وما يشنا بيشتغل هذا أحد شرحها بأحد شمان. Why is that different in the different case of, let's say you have two pieces of fat. One is halib, which is a sur, one is shuman, which is a mutar. And one is not sur, which one has to bring a shem fluid, safek korban. Why? Why you're choshesh for safek? Marcel, it happened, it has a case over there, it's one of them definitely a sur, that's why. Marcel, over here, regarding the animal, we don't have to assume for possibilities. Why also different in the case of a knife that was checked after slaughtering and you saw the nick in it? You assume it's pasul from before. مثلا حتى because you have a defect in the knife, it gives you a reason to believe. But over here, we don't have to have that reason to believe. Okay, وما يشنع يستفيد تمات which they أخير يستفيد تمات. What's the difference in the case of a possible tuma in private property that we assume that that possible tuma is تمات? تمات says تمات إن لما إن نستفيد تمات بس ربين تستفيد هور. Why are you bringing a proof from right this famous concept throughout Shas that safek tuman in private property is tamet? He's like, why are you bringing a proof from there? Bring a proof from Safek Tuman Pishtabin, that's tahor. And it must be Hatam Hechlag Mila Stav, we learn halacha of Safek Tuman from private property, from the halachot of Sutta, that a woman is suspected as Tuma in private. Atif Verman pointed out that was Rabbi Stein from Prana. By Atif Kamar, and they were saying, Nimset Itmar. By Ulat said it was found, the thorn was found without being stuck. Aval Yashab Hashim, but if it was stuck, you assume that you can assume it's Tarefet. Taref. Maglev Kana Latis Latumaston. Yashab Itmar says stop. Avan Nimset Lo Nitzrich Ula. If it was found, you don't have to worry about Ula. The Kula Haibe Beratak Kosi Achlam, because all animals eat thorns through their foods. And therefore, they're not because they're eating stuff in the shrubbery and stuff, so you don't have to assume that Tamet. Taref. Itmar. Turbasa Veget, regarding the top of the esophagus where it's attached to the jaw. Rav Mashu, puncture in that any amount is pasul. Ushum Ruba has the majority in order to be pasul. Rav Mashu Makum Shitahu, Rav says pasul be any amount because it's the place for slaughter. Shmuel but Ruba Lab Makum Shitahu here of Shmuel no, that's not the part for Shahita. Haini who's about to say, where is that? Marba Mare Bar Mar Ukamar Shmuel Ko Shatum Merhik Zehu Tubas Veset. If you cut along the food pipe and then it widens, that's where this place is, the the esophagus cord, they call it. So if you cut it and it doesn't widen, it just stays in the same spot. That is a regular esophagus. Your rabbi doesn't say that. Ella, what does he say? If it stays in the same place, that's the esophagus cord. What's the actual esophagus? Whatever it widens. And sorry, shrinks. Yuna Amar Seda Miblata. Yuna says the name of Zaira. That what? In the case if it swallows, the esophagus cord is the place where it swallows, the top of the food pipe next to the mouth. The kama, how long is that? Less than a barley grain, but more than the length of a wheat grain. There's certain ox that belong to Ukva's sons. That's Hilbe Shahita to Rusa Haveshit Begamab Beveshit. The slaughter started by the esophagus cord, and then you ended by the esophagus. About said, I will say the stringencies of Rab and the stringencies of Shmuel, and I'll say it's Taref. Meaning, even though both rabbis separately won't say it's Pasul, but he took them both. How? Chomre de Rab de Amar Rab Mashal. Rab says strict because he says any amount. Amar Rab Makom Shidao. Rab said it's able to be slaughtered there. Kishmuel, therefore Halak Shmuel, Damar Lu Makom Shidao. And Halak Shmuel is not enough. It's not like location. Ishmuel Amar Rabo, but Shmuel says majority. Kirad Amar Mashal, therefore I hold the stringency of Rab. So any amount. So using the size amount, Rav, which is any amount, which is strict, and using the location, like Shmuel, that holds the wrong place. This story spread until it reached Abba. Marlo, he told him, Torah ben Rab ben Shmuel Share. The ox is mutar for Rab or Shmuel. Zilu imru le bered de Yosef Hama. Go tell Rava, they shalem dmei Torah the mered to go pay the value of the ox to the owner if you fed it through to the dogs already. Amam me'ed b'Ravina. More the son of Ravina said, Matibna tiyufte klapes taned Rava. I can bring a proof against Rava. لم يحتاج لبيت الله خاص according to بيت الله. فسر العصوت تدري شماي وسيف. If you want to do بيت شماي, you can. If you بيت الله وسيف, if you want to do بيت الله, you can. مكوي بيت شماي, مكوي بيت الله, you can do leniencies of both بيت شماي and بيت الله. That's Rasha. محمل بيت شماي بيت الله, if you want to be straight like both of them, Allah مكتوب مethod Pasuk says that what? الكثير بحجة خلاص, the fool goes in dark. Allah كي بيت شماي كي كلهم محملين كي بيت الله كلهم محملين. If you want to be like strict, if you want to like be like بيت شماي, you have to take the good, the lenient and strict. You want the Betilel, take the lenient and strict. So how can Rabbi say strict in both? Versus Haguf Akasha, so you have a problem. Amartla, and Machak, you said Alachal was like him. By that time, Betilel took this might be asked, but you just said you're allowed to follow both July. I said the Makash not that. Can't call them back call. When we say allowed to follow both, before there was a bad call in Masechet Eruvin that mentioned that you halachas like Betilel. Can I have a call after we said that after a bad call we follow Betilel? You meant an answer? Even after bad call, Yeshua he doesn't any mashkih him because like Yeshua hold that we don't like, we don't listen to bad calls. We only Torah's over here. So we come catch us. Regardless, how do you explain the bright up that he went strict according to both rabbis? Marav Tevut. By the way, this is a big part of religion nowadays. A lot of people think they have to be strict on everything and whatever. I don't want to get canceled. Kulu Rabbi Rabbi held like Rav. Amar, he said, don't listen to Yehuda, my brother said named Rav. Because Rav actually said, Chachamim gave a limit for shechita in the esophagus. Therefore, that shows that the esophagus course in not the right location. And Rav still said it's the highest amount. So when Rav said that it's pasul over there, that is the pasul amount, the pasul location, and it was any amount to make a pasul. And then